Hello, and welcome to my poetry corner. This is my favorite corner in the world, and now it can be yours too. Hello, and welcome to Poetry FM 101. This is season 2, where you get to meet the poet. Now, I'm sure you all heard the previous episode where you heard my guest recite one of their poems, and I'm sure you're wondering, who is this person? Who is this poet who recites such amazing lines? Well, it's time to break the mystery, and I would love to introduce you to my guest and poet for today's episode. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Surabhi Ghosh to Poetry FM 101. Surabhi, thank you so much for being here. And I know that you traveled from the other end of the city today morning to do this. And I truly appreciate that.
Thanks for inviting me, Nidhi.
It's an absolute honor. It's a great honor to have you here with me. So before we introduce you to the audience, I'm sure every one of us is wondering. They would love to hear your poem. So please go ahead and can you recite one of your favorite poems for us right here and now?
So I mostly write in Hindi, but since this poetry is all about conversations, I'm going to start with a poem
Sure.
which is about conversation and in English. So
Absolutely.
here it goes.
Awesome.
So the poem is called Conversations, and it goes something like this. I wish someday we can talk about the colors blue and black. I wish someday we can talk about love that doesn't heal. I wish someday we can talk about getting tired of compassion and wanting to embrace the selfishness. I wish someday we can talk about relationships that weren't meant to be, but fill the empty spaces your heart still. I wish someday we can talk about how you want everything to crumble and not stand your ground. I wish someday we can talk about motherhood that isn't a pinnacle of womanhood, rather an abyss of turmoils. I wish someday we can talk about how you want to wash away in your own tears and touch the darkness within. I wish someday we can talk about stuff that make us, the ugly ones, like we talk about beauty. I wish someday we do not just talk rather than have conversations that are real.
Wow. Wow. I am flabbergasted, particularly that line where you said about, I wish someday we can talk about womanhood that is not the pinnacle of motherhood or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that was truly mind blowing. There's a lot of depth to your poetry in what you say. So you take an everyday element, and then you like really dive into it. You go to the anatomy of it, and you bring out a lot of emotions within. And then I suppose on that note, it's only fair that we get to know you a little better. So, Surabhi, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience, right? Like, what do you do? How did you become a poet? Anything about yourself that you feel the audience would love to know?
So, I like my journey of poetry started it just started. I don't even remember when. I think I was very little. I was in school and I have always written poetries, but like, in schools, it was supposed to be just in your diaries and shared with just a few of friends. So I had but I was blessed to have teachers who always encouraged me to read and write, and they always loved what I did. So that kind of always inspired me, and I kept going about it. And then when I came to Bangalore, I think the journey of understanding poetry really started in Bangalore. Like, I came to Bangalore, I met a lot of people, I met a lot of, like, I never knew the concept of poetry groups, so to say.
Right.
And that's something I discovered in Bangalore. And I think,
So you've always kept poetry to yourself until you came to Bangalore and you discovered you should share it with people.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
And like, I was pleasantly surprised. One, like, it was a new world, like a whole new world, because until then reading poetry was not a concept in my life. Like I would read a lot of novels, a lot of stories, but not poetry. I didn't read poetry, but I of course wrote a lot. And then I realized the value of reading, knowing other
Right.
poets, and uh, like contemporary poets, or people who have yesterday's poets, and all of that, and that opened a really new world to me.
And do you enjoy the experience of being able to connect with different poets and engage with them and meet them maybe on a regular basis?
Of course I do. It's just that after COVID, it's kind of
Dull down.
yeah, it's dull down a lot. So I think it's my first poetry conversation, uh, after in-person poetry conversation in a very, very long time.
You mean this podcast?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, what a privilege to be having this first conversation with Surabhi after the lockdown. So that's amazing. So other than poetry, what is it that you do, Surabhi? For work, for passion, for hobby?
So I am a marketing professional. I work in IT as a marketing person. I've been I started my career long back, and so that's the day-to-day part of me. But when I don't do that, I watch a lot of films. Like
Okay.
I just love watching movies. I love reading.
Do you have a favorite genre of movies?
I actually, it's very weird. It depends on mood. Like it's not like that. There are times when I'm really craving for horror, but then there are times I'm like, I don't want to because I'm not in that mind space. Then sometimes I'm like, no, I want to, just be in that very light, like not, I won't say Rohit Shetty kind of a movie, but still, uh, I would say something like Zoya Akhtar movies. So maybe, Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara kind of space. And then there are times when I'm watching one of those, everything. So I have watched everything that is Satyajit Ray, of course, because I'm a Bengali. So
okay, so movies are a big part of your life.
So it is, yeah, and it inspires me a lot. And especially now, because even web series for that matter, another thing is like, I do not watch something which is very popular at that point. Like if it's a Game of Thrones, I'll watch it 10 years later when it's
okay.
So that way I'm very weird, but yeah, I have to watch a movie or a web series while I'm at the end of the day, just to unwind.
Well, I wouldn't call it weird, but that is definitely an interesting and unique perspective. Speaking of unique perspectives, I have to ask, do you remember the time when you first encountered poetry? How was that first realization of poetry? How did you feel about it? What was your experience like? And when did you realize that you're a poet or that you can write poetry?
Like I said, it just happened.
Your first encounter with poetry?
At this point, I feel like poetry was like always a part of my life. So it is like I was so young. Like so I'll tell you a funny story. So when I was like, poetry writing has been a part of my life, I think, since I can even remember things. So I grew up in Himachal, and I was like really young, like I think in class 3 maximum, I think standard second or third or something. And I remember I used to write letters to unknown people.
Oh, okay.
And
would you actually post them? Or
no, I mean,
just keep
it
them?
just be there, lying around in home somewhere. And I
All
think
right.
one day, I mean, I don't remember very clearly, but I remember one fine day, Dad got hold of that letter, and he was like, "Wow,
Wow.
So-
Okay.
and he had a nice laugh about it. Similarly, one day I wrote a letter to a friend. And I grew up in the 90s. So 90s and early 2000s. So it's like letter writing was a huge part of my life. I used to post letters to my friends, and since my dad had a transferable job, I would the way of that time, landlines were there, but you won't call so much. Letters were
The
and
thing, yeah,
you
yeah.
would write so many
True.
letters. And one fine day, I had a letter written to my one of my best friend, and it was there in my notebook. And my Hindi teacher, Hindi or I think she taught us Sanskrit that time. So she got it, and I think I had written something funny about one or other teachers. Thankfully, not her, because anyway, she was my favorite teacher. So, and she got it, but of course, she had a hearty laugh about it.
Okay.
But she loved the way I had. She was like, I have never read a class. I think I was in seventh or something that time. That is a seventh standard person writing the way you have written. So writing has never been like, I have never been devoid of writing. I just can't remember when I started, because it has been so much into my life. Yes, a poetry. If you ask specifically about poetry, I think it started like it starts for, I think, every teenager, like with your but it was not love, it
Okay.
was friend. So I wrote it for one of my best friends whom I was missing dearly, and she was like really really far away. And I think that was when I first time I wrote poetry, and I was like in class 9th and 10th. And then it was like about everything, like about how I was feeling, or and it was not, of course there was love poems, definitely, but there was also other things. So it was not just love or that teenage thing. It was always a way of expression. So poetry, I think, for the longest time was my way of expression, is my way of expression.
So you've always been writing something, or very poetic things, but you never called it poetry, or you never classified it as poetry until your teenagers, when you started writing it and giving it a form in a poetic form. Okay, that's amazing. Well, then, that makes me wonder, and I have to ask you this question. What is your philosophy of poetry? Or what does poetry mean to you personally?
So I think sometimes it's like I don't have a philosophy. It just it's
Your
just,
perspective, then, not philosophy. What's your perspective?
it just
Idea.
comes to me. It's like when I'm not able to express something in words as in in sentences and in so many words, and it's like, or there's something which it just becomes a poetry, and it just happens very organically, very naturally. It's not like, and I don't try too hard to write. Like, to be honest, I haven't written anything in the past. After my last book got published, I thought I just had a cathartic moment, and like all my poetry is like now done. I mean, I have not written anything for a very long time, but I don't force myself to do that either. So it's just a, for me, it's more of a way of expression, a way of connecting with the innermost thoughts, and sometimes, and it's also like you said a while ago, that you take day to day things and you just, so that's true. I mean, I do that a lot, but then it's like I live in my head. So I would see someone. I mean, if I'm seeing you, and if you're like, if we were not having conversation, if I didn't know you, I would probably have a whole story in my head about you.
Wow, that is a great place to live. Awesome. Okay.
I do that a lot. So I also write short stories and stuff. So and that's where, so you never know who becomes a character of my short stories. So so it's very like especially after coming to Bangalore, have we spent at least pre-COVID and work from home and all of that. We spent so much time in traffic, and to be honest, I loved that duration, that hour and a half.
You love being in traffic.
I tell you why. Because I'm a very public transport person. So, and I'll see these people and I'll see these things. There'll be people either fighting or people talking, or they just there's so many people. There's so much to see. There's so much happening outside yourself as well, outside your life as well. And I'll just, there'll be something that'll be like, they'll not trigger, but that'll be like, that'll inspire me to write. So I have written poetry about especially the society. I mean, that's why you see the society, you see the real society on the roads, and especially when you work in corporate, you see that. I think you see when you come out of that big office, and air conditions, and everything at your
You see the
disposal,
everyday life
and you
at
see
its
that, and you come out, and you see people on the road, and you see that distinct divide that we have, like
I see what you mean. So there's a group of people on cycle, then some on the scooters, and then someone like really posh luxury cars.
Yeah,
then,
and especially in the
and the whole how they interact with one another is so
Exactly.
distinct. Right?
And also in the corporate, especially in the corporate, and especially because I'm a very small town person, so I have still not I still don't relate to a city life. I grew up, like I said, I grew up in Himachal, then I grew up in Chhattisgarh, which is like heart of the country, and like in a very small in a small town called Bhilai. So I mean, you won't believe, my first McDonald's was in my college, like not even college, in my postgraduate.
Right.
So that was my first time. I was like, wow, okay. So like that.
I've seen the yellow AM so many times, but that's
yeah.
when
No, I hadn't even seen the logo till then. So
Wow.
yeah, I didn't have the concept. Like I didn't have the concept of eating pizzas. I didn't have the concept of eating burger, because that was not a thing. Like everything was made at home.
That's a wonderful thing. I think you've had a very genuine and unadulterated childhood.
Of course, absolutely. So when I came, like when I moved out of the small town environment, I was like, okay, and I could never, like I'm most at home in my hometown. I am never at home in a big city ever. So it's so when I come out, that strikes me the most, and I'm always uncomfortable with. I don't know. I don't want to sound like a saint, but that's the truth. I'm very uncomfortable with a lot of luxury. Like you take me to a posh
Right.
star.
You're a minimalistic person. You enjoy simplicity.
Yeah, and I'll be like, what is this? Like,
you feel out of place.
Yeah, I feel very out of place with all the pompousness of the cities. So, and then I go out and I see people on the road. So I have written poetry about, women traveling on bus. Like there would be a woman sitting just in front of me, looking like a normal office person.
And you take that everyday element,
and I'll have a poetry about that.
That's amazing.
There'll be a poem about, there is a poem rather about, if there's a woman with a child who's looking at me and, asking for money. There's poetry about, at times you are at signal, and I find it really weird. Like you're at signal, and you in your heart, you're like, you're a good person, you want to do good for the world, but nobody thinks of themselves as a gray person. I don't think, in all honesty, people either know that they were good, most people think that we're good people, and then you go to a signal and this person who's kind of asking, I mean, it happened to me. I don't know if that makes me a bad person, but then yeah. So there's someone who'll ask for money, and then you open your wallet with all your intention to give money. But then your intention is to give that person 20 rupees, right? But then you see, oh, all you have in your wallet is either 100 or 200 or 500, and then you do not want to do that, right? And then there's that
the internal conflict.
The conflict that, are you really a good person? Like, so, I have written poetry about that. Like, and there's only that 10 seconds or 30 seconds to decide. So I don't know if you're getting what I'm saying.
No,
so
I do,
it's
absolutely.
Very day to day.
It would be very interesting at this point. We would love to listen to one such poetry about this everyday event. Well, let's have you recite another poem of an everyday event.
Definitely, there are a lot. I mean, most of it is that, but yeah. So this is called as it's a Hindi poem, and this is called as "Bus mein ungti aurtein." I'll translate it for you.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Hindi is fine.
So it's called as "Bus mein ungti aurtein." बस में ऊँगती औरतों को जल्दी नहीं होती कहीं पहुंचने की, वो बस की गति में स्थिर होती हैं। बस में ऊँगती औरतें छोड़ आती हैं रसोई की महक, बच्चों की चिंता, गृहस्थी का भार, और खरीदती हैं टिकट के साथ कुछ देर ऊँघने की आजादी। बस में उमती औरतें बार बार झपकी लेती हैं। वो मुस्कुराती हैं अंदर बाहर होते हुए किसी सपने में। वो शायद चाहती हैं निर्विघ्न देखते रहते वो सपना, और सोना चाहती हैं थोड़ी और देर गहरी नींद में। लेकिन बस में ऊँघती औरतें जानती हैं ये संभव नहीं, इसलिए वो बस ऊँघती हैं ताकि ठीक समय पर उतर सकें, लेकर अपनी जिम्मेदारी का बैग। पर बस में ऊँघती औरतें थम जाना चाहती हैं पर बस में ऊँघती औरतें थम जाना चाहती हैं बस की गति के साथ। बस में ऊँघती औरतें कहीं पहुंचना नहीं चाहती।
Wow, that was बहुत gary poetry. So, taking a break from a little bit of deep stuff onto something a bit more lighter. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When was the last time that someone tried to impress you with poetry? Or has anyone tried to impress you with poetry?
Okay.
Guys, maybe, particularly in college, at work?
No,
No?
never.
What a shame.
It's the other way around.
Have you tried to impress?
Yeah, of course.
Of course,
Of
I'm a poet.
course.
That's what I do.
Of course.
Okay. Well, in that case, are you ready for a bit of excitement, a rapid fire round? Okay, so it's going to be two choices, one or the other. You have to choose only one. You can choose only one. Even if both of them are very appealing, only one. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Ice creams or salad?
Ice cream.
Oh, that was rather quick. That was alarmingly quick. Ice cream. Fight or flight?
Fight.
Fight? That was unexpected. You seem like a very calm person. I'm very calm,
I'm
composed,
not.
and you're like,
Not at all.
wow. Okay. Take that as a warning. Love or luxury?
Love.
Okay. Poetry or fame and money?
Fame and money.
Why?
Not fame so much, but yeah, money. Just, because.
So you're willing to give up on writing poetry, having anything to do with poetry, but you're okay earning money.
So that's because at this point, I'm not writing poetry. I mean, I'm talking my current situation. It's just that, there's no poetry left in me. I've not written for a good 2 years, and I've been reading, and I somehow feel a lot of the poetry is out there. Like, a lot of catharsis has happened. And of course, I'm at a stage of life where I would want to have that stability, and I want to have, not to worry about the future. So,
thank you. That was painfully brutal and honest. I appreciate that. Okay, last question. I need you to think really hard on this one. I mean, don't think, just the first thing that comes to your mind. The love of your life or unlimited travel opportunities?
Love of my life.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The poet and my guest for today, Surabhi Ghosh. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you here. And on a closing note, how can the audience find you if they wanted to find you? Would you want to tell them, maybe your Instagram handle or the name of your book, maybe, if they can find you through your books, or if you're there anywhere else, like a blog or anywhere else on social media? If you want people to connect with you, how can they do it? Go ahead.
Definitely. So I have written 3 books so far. All of them are on Amazon. So my first poetry book was Sanjogita. This is the one. You can find it on Amazon. The other one is Kumudini. It is a small book with some short and long poems, some 20, 30 odd poems. And the third one is kind of, it's a novella, so to say, or a memoir, if you will. And that's called as tumhaare, liye. And so all 3 books are in Amazon, so you can find them there. Other than that, you can also connect with me on Instagram. It's Surabhi _Ghosh _ Sanjogita. So yeah.
I will be leaving a links to Surabhi's social profiles and her books in the description, so make sure you check that out. And Surabhi, this is probably about the time where I do the outro to my podcast. But since you're here as a guest, I will let you have the honors of doing the outro. So the closing statement is all yours. How would you like to close this episode of the podcast?
So, maybe I'll read a poem.
Oh, okay. That's a new way of closing. Sure, go ahead.
So I'll just so I write a lot of existential poetry, and this is one of those, and this is me, and this is all the uh, conflicts within. So it's just that, and all the life that I have lived, and all of that. So it's just that. It's called as आईना. मेरे कमरे में एक आईना है, वो हर रोज थोड़ा सा टूटता रहा है. हैंडल विद केयर के एक नोट के साथ मिला था मुझे, मगर मैंने कभी ध्यान नहीं दिया. जैसे चाहा वैसे इस्तेमाल किया. एक बार तो मकान बदलते वक्त कोई भारी बोझ रख दिया था उस पर. तभी से एक दरार पड़ गई है इसकी सतह पर. हर बार एक नया ठिकाना ढूंढने की आदत और मेरी इस बेकल सी जिंदगी की बड़ी कीमत चुकाई है इस आईने ने. देखो ना, अब इसके किनारे भी टूट कर खुरदुरे होने लगे हैं. मैं रोज सैंड पेपर से घिस कर इसके कोनों को हमवार बनाने की कोशिश करती हूँ, पर ये खुरदुराहट जाती ही नहीं. सुनो, तुम इसे जरा संभाल कर ही इस्तेमाल करना. इसके नोकीले कोनों से हाथ कट सकते हैं तुम्हारे. मुझे तो अब रोज इससे थोड़ा थोड़ा कटने की आदत हो गई है, मगर तुम ये दर्द बर्दाश्त ना कर सको शायद. आसान नहीं है इस आईने के साथ गुजर करना, यह पहले सा निरा नहीं है.
Thank you so much. But you can't close a podcast that way. You will have to do a proper outro. So we're gonna learn how to do an outro right here, right now. So maybe you can follow me. This is how I normally do an outro. So I tell the audience, thank you for tuning in, and we will be back again next week, same time, same place, with a different story, a different rhyme.
Okay. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll be back next week again, same time, same place, with Nitin and another very talented poet. Stay tuned.
Ladies and gentlemen, Surabhi Ghosh once again. Surabhi, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you here and listening to your poetry, and I'm sure a lot of the audience would love that as well. And all the best in your future endeavors.